Alright guys, welcome to this video. In the last video we talked about tuples. In today's video we're going to be talking about the Python enhancement proposal and how it helps make your code look even better when you follow those laws. If you're ready for this video, make sure to drop a like down below. Also subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any future videos, and check out the links in the description. Anyways guys, without further ado, let's get into the video. So now we've known the basics of programming, your code might be getting longer and longer, and you might need to think about how to style your code. Now you need to take time to make your code as readable as possible so that others can be able to understand your code and you can keep track of what you're doing as well. Now Python programmers have agreed to a number of styling conventions to ensure that everyone's code is structured roughly in the same way. Now once you've learned how to write clean Python code, you should also be able to understand others' clean code. If you're hoping to become a professional, at some point, you might need to work with others, and you might need to start following these guidelines so that they can be able to understand your code. It instructs Python programmers on how to style their code, and it's pretty lengthy, but much of it relates to complex programs unlike the simple programs we've been writing. But it's still good to start practicing now so that by the time you start writing more complex programs, it's not going to be a problem. Now the Python style guide was written with the understanding that code is read more often than it's written, so you read more code than you write. Now this is because you're going to be doing a lot of debugging. When there are errors in your code, you're going to read through the code and then you're going to try to solve the problem. You might also have to share your code with other programmers and they will also read your code. So if you have a choice between writing easy to read code and code that is hard to read, you're obviously going to choose writing easy to read code because that code is going to be more shareable to others and it's going to be more readable, especially when you want to start debugging. So today we're going to be looking at the basic PEP guidelines. The first one is indentation. Now PEP recommends that you use 4 spaces per indentation level. Using 4 spaces improves readability while leaving room for multiple levels of indentation on each line. Now if you're ideally using 4 spaces or a tab, you can go to your configure ideally in your options menu and you can change that to as many spaces as you want. But don't forget, the recommended is 4 spaces. You can change it to 2 spaces, but if you are going to be needing a lot of debugging, sharing your code, and etc., you're going to need to use 4 spaces so that others can understand your code. And also there's an issue of tabs and spaces. If you're going to use them, then set a tab to give 4 spaces, because if you mix tabs and spaces, it can cause problems in your file which are very difficult to handle. So it's best you choose one, either tabs or spaces, not a mixture of both. Now let's talk about line length for a moment. Most Python programmers recommend that each line should be less than 80 characters. Now for me, I don't think I've ever written a line up to 40 characters, but if you go into writing more complex programs, maybe you start writing Python code for Google, I don't know, you might need to look at these guidelines. Now, people could only fit 79 characters into a single line in a terminal window, but now people can fit lines that are much longer. But there are other reasons for you to continue to use the 79 character line length rule. Most programmers use multiple screens while coding. For example, you have a YouTube tutorial on the left or an article on the left and then your ideally window on the right. This is going to also limit the number of characters you have in your screen. That is why you have to use up to 80 characters, because not everyone has Python open fully on their screen. Also, PEP recommends that you keep all your comments down to 72 characters per line, because some programming tools add characters before the comments just to show you that it's a comment, which might increase the line length to 80, which is why we keep it at 72. Now following these guidelines might help you create more shareable code and make your code better in general. Now let's talk about blank lines, empty lines. These lines don't affect your program, but what are they used for? But let's say you write code without blank lines. It's going to look smashed together and it's not going to look great. But let's say you use the lines to break them up and make it look a little bit more spaced out. Not only is this going to be a lot more readable, it's also going to make your code look a lot better. And although it doesn't affect how the code runs, it does affect how people are going to view the code. When there are no blank lines, the code tends to be complex and very hard to understand. But with some blank lines, it seems to be a little more spaced out and people can read every block of code just to understand how the program is flowing. Now, you can use blank lines. It's highly recommended that you do in your programs. However, you should not place like 3 or 4 blank lines between 2 sections, because that is going to make the code look extremely weird and it's just not going to be great. So 1 blank line, in very rare cases you might use 2, but 3 is a bit overkill. So there are other style guidelines that PEP provides, which is Python Enhancement Proposal, but most of the guidelines refer to more complex programs than the simple things that we write. But you've learned how to use the PEP guidelines in this video, and you've also learned how to apply it in your programs, which means not only are you going to write better code, you're also going to be able to share it to more people, and they're going to find it easier to read. It also makes the entire process of debugging your code much easier. Anyways guys, that's going to be it in this video. In the next video, we're going to start looking at the nitty-gritty bits of Python, which is if statements. We're going to look at how to use if statements and how they can contribute to the complexity of your programs. Anyways, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed, drop a like down below. Subscribe to the channel so that you do not miss any new videos that are going to be coming up in the near future. Now, I upload weekly, but sometimes I might put a video in between the weeks, so you definitely want to subscribe so that you do not miss that video. Anyways, check out the description for the link to the Python enhancement proposal so that you can read the whole thing, because it's pretty long and it's very hard to fit in a single video. But while you're down there, like this video, subscribe, stay happy coding, and I'll see you in the next one.